Many of us have dreamed about the idea of creating our own business or company. We think about the profits that it could bring us, the cash, but also the time freedom and the fact that we wouldn't have a manager or a boss to report to anymore. And then we think, hey, we have got this great new idea. And if we could just apply this idea to the market, we could see some real success in it. And that becomes the dream. But then at some point, reality hits you in the face. And you start to think, well, if I'm going to make this dream a reality, do I need to give up my job to make that happen? My consistent income? And what happens if the market doesn't like my idea? Will I be made into a fool or would I not make any money? Will I not be even able to pay my bills? And many of us then hesitate and back out of that fear of the unknown. Well, today I'm excited to have a special guest with us, Ryan Atkinson, who's a co-founder of a couple of small companies, Space Bar Visuals and Magic Media. And he has been on this journey. In fact, just recently, a few months ago, he decided to take the plunge, quit his consistent job for that dream. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, so much for the opportunity. Super excited to talk about that journey and provide value where I can to your listeners. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, can you give us a quick glimpse into the companies that you've started?
Yeah, definitely. So I run two different companies, as you mentioned. One is Magic Media and one is Spacebar Visuals. And we can start with Magic Media first. So Magic Media is a little bit more passively that I'm doing right now, but essentially what we are is we're a podcast production studio where we help podcasts like these, like other podcasts, and other executives bring their podcast vision to life without them having to do the post-production work, the pre-production work, everything that comes with the podcast. I know you're very familiar with. We handle all of that for them. So it's a very streamlined process with that. Spacebar Visuals is what I'm more focused on and what I'm more excited for. But what we do at Spacebar Visuals is our pitch. I'll give everyone the pitch of like what we say is we create animated videos for every stage of the sales funnel. So top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. We can create explainer videos. We can create a product demo. We can repurpose a customer testimonial, repurpose a white paper that you can then use on your website, social media, email clatter, all that good spot to help boost your lead conversions and reduce the sales cycle time. So those are at a very high level of what we are doing.
I love it. So when did you start having the idea, especially for the second company,
Yeah.
Spacebar?
Great question. So the seed for me has always been planted to be like my own boss. Like you said, my own boss. I can be on my own time. I can not do what I want, but do what I want. At a very young age, both my parents are, my mom and my stepdad are both entrepreneurs. So I grew up watching them like create their own schedules, be their own bosses. So I always knew I wanted to do the same at some point. What it really started was November 2022. It's a typical day. I'm living in Boston at the time. I'm just scrolling on Twitter and I see a tweet that says, "Hey, I just sold my company. I'm looking to start a new company. Like, does anyone want to like work with me?" And so his name's Brandon. And I was like, "Oh, like this seems like a cool opportunity. Like it looks like all upside to me." So sent him a cold email, put a little video on it as well. And we started basically November 2022. We hit it off. We do some ideas. Do we want to be a video animation studio? Do we want to be a newsletter agency? And we landed on the video animation agency, obviously. So that was November 2022. We got our first client March of 2023. So about a year ago. And yeah, I was doing it on the side for a little bit with my full-time job. And then November 13th came around and I was like, jumping in. So yeah, I've been doing it full time now for about three months and 1 day. So yeah, it's a little bit of the journey that I've been on.
One of the strategies I like that you did there is you started the business while you had your current job to give you a little bit of
Definitely.
stability. But what was that lifestyle like? How did you actually give enough time and energy to make that business a reality while not shortchanging your employer?
For sure. I would say to that, like my job that I was in, I was able to pound through like a lot of work, like very, very quickly. So yes, I was working until like 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night, but I was able to kind of get all my work done and do a very, very good job, but also work on this company on the side that I knew I eventually wanted to be my full-time gig. So yeah, it was definitely stressful. A lot of it comes down to time management skills, organizational skills. You are going to spend some nights working till 9 o'clock, but it was usually around like 6 or 7. So definitely just your brain's scattered in a lot of different ways when you're doing this, but it's just staying as organized as possible when you are actually in it, with time blocks, time management skills, and all that good stuff. So I remember the day that I quit, like November 13th, that very first day where I'm by myself. My mind was like so much more at ease, where I could think about like so much. Is like all more on spacebar visual. So looking back, very chaotic mind, but you kind of do that with some time management, project management, or organizational skills.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I know one of the hardest things for people to get initially is just their first client. So here
Mm,
you had this idea back in November, you got your first
yeah.
client in March. It's like 5 months there. What was that journey like?
Yeah. So getting our first client, how we did that is we use a software called Instantly.ai, which is basically an email automation platform. You plug in 100 people and they're going to automatically reach out to them. So we got very lucky off the bat. We actually landed 2 clients in March. Both were at about 7K each. So we did about $14,000 in revenue, like our very first month of selling. So we're like, oh my God, do we set projections now at like $1 million by the end of the year? Just kidding. But so essentially we did that $14,000 in the first month. And what's funny about that though is August or March, April, and then May, we didn't sell a single thing. So here we are, like doing $14,000 in our first month just through cold emails. So it was total beginner's luck. But then we followed that up with 2 months of no revenue. So it's kind of like, oh, it worked like right away, but like now what? Like, does this thing actually work? So it was a very interesting dynamic when we were just getting started.
So instantly, how is that different than a tool like MailChimp?
They're essentially the same thing. Instantly, I don't know what MailChimp's pricing is, but instantly we're at like $97 a month.
Okay.
And basically all we need to do is like plug in a list and a list of like 100 contacts or something that we get from like a VA. And then we'll just craft the messages and whatnot and send it out to them. So very similar platforms though.
How do you find that email list?
So we use a virtual assistant to get all of these lists. So if you are thinking about starting like your first company, one, definitely ask for referrals. We didn't do a good job at the beginning doing that. But if you are thinking about starting your first company and you need to get like a list of like 150, 300 people, you just need to first identify who do I think will buy this? What industries do we want to go after? What job titles do I need to target? What employee size do I want to target? And basically you can just go to Upwork and for 10 cents a contact, you can find someone in the Philippines, someone overseas to get you that list. So, I mean, you get 200 contacts for $20 if you wanted to really start it out.
That's great. So then are they just, exploring the internet, finding, companies and then jotting down their email addresses?
Yeah, I believe, I don't know the technical details of it, but I do believe they're going through like LinkedIn, like a LinkedIn
Okay.
sales nav. You can develop lists. So all I know is I paid them like $20 to get like 20 contacts, but I do believe that's how they are doing it.
So then you get that list, but then what messages do you send people? I mean,
For
cold
sure.
email, at least for me, I try to like shut down all of that as
Yeah.
much as possible.
Yeah. So thankfully, I came from HubSpot, which is obviously a phenomenal company with a great
Mm.
business development program. So I was a BDR there for about a year,
What's a BDR?
business development representative.
Okay.
So I was doing all outbound calls, all outbound emails, which is a very hard role. But we used a template at HubSpot called the 4T template. Shout out to Sam Jacobson, my manager. He's the one that showed me this. So essentially, this 4T template is first, it's a truth. So, hey, Mike, I saw you're the CEO. Basically, I saw you're the CEO. Then the number 2 is like think. Like, as a CEO, like I'm sure you're worried about generating revenue for your company. So we have a truth, a think, and then the third T is third party evaluation. So, you're the CEO. I'm sure you're interested in generating revenue. We are working with 35 other SaaS companies to increase the revenue by like 20%, something like this. I'm just brainstorming here. And then the fourth one would be talk. So basically like a CTA, like any interest in seeing how we can do the same for you. So that was the template that we used for about 6 different emails. And we were just kind of throwing messages together with that one and seeing what would stick. And thankfully 2 did because we were able to close 2 clients. So yeah, pretty crazy to look back on though.
That's awesome. So you sent out, do you send out like multiple emails? So like an initial email, then a follow up and a follow up and a follow up?
Yep. So we would send about 6 different emails to about one person over the span of about 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks or so. So yeah,
Okay. So then you sent out, to 200 different people, and within 200 people, you got two sales.
we were I mean, it was probably a lot more than 200. I was just using that for
Oh,
simple math,
okay.
but we were lucky to actually get that's why it was so crazy, because it was like, oh my gosh, like we just did 14K in revenue in our first month of selling. Like either this is going to be a home run or like this is beginner's luck. And we quickly learned it was beginner's luck because we followed the next 2 months with $0 in revenue.
Sure. What do you think those conversion ratios are for, let's say you get 100,000 leads and
Oh
you
yeah.
get 1,000 or
Through
100 investors or
Yeah, yeah.
salespeople?
Through outbound, what we've noticed the past few months is that our outbound emails, the open rates are going down and the reply rates are going down.
Mm,
So what we really have pivoted doing is going to LinkedIn outreach. And through LinkedIn outreach, we've been actually seeing like quite a few like very good trends in that. I would say we've been running it for about 3 weeks now. And we've already booked like 4 or 5 meetings from it, which is like incredible compared to our outbound efforts. So if you're looking at like 100 leads, I mean, we'd be happy with like 5 people that actually booked to meetings and then like 2 converting to actual sales. I think those would be good numbers that we'd want to have.
okay. So then on LinkedIn, do you send messages out to people that you already have connections with, or are these connection requests? Are they in-mail messages?
Yeah, great question. So what we use for our platform is called LinkedIn Helper.
Okay.
And what you can do with LinkedIn Helper is you can define what we do is we get a list from a VA again, $20 for 200 contacts, and they'll pull their LinkedIn profiles of our ICP. So usually 11 to 50 people, a marketing director, VP of marketing. We'll then take that list and plug it into LinkedIn Helper, and LinkedIn Helper will automatically send them connection requests. We'll send them one email or one message, another message, and like a third message. So a lot of what we do at scale is through automation platforms like an Instantly or like a LinkedIn Helper. And these are fairly cheap tools. So if you're thinking like, okay, like I need to get my outbound efforts going, I want to start a company, definitely look into Instantly and LinkedIn Helper and just get a list and target that same list through emails and through LinkedIn. It's a very scrappy way to reach a lot of people for probably under $200 a month.
It's amazing, especially if your, conversion ratio is like 1 or 2%. That's
For sure.
phenomenal.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of good replies, and I feel like a lot of it is email. Like you said earlier, like no one wants to read an email anymore, but LinkedIn's at least a little bit more personable, where you can like see their face and like, oh, I actually like know this, like this person actually like might be worth my time. We like to think, anyways. But yeah, it's been a good channel for us.
So then on like the emotional front, so the first month was phenomenal. You had all these, $14,000 of sales. The next 2 months was nothing. What were you thinking, feeling during that time?
I remember I remember sitting with my co-founder Brandon in like April. It was our first time like meeting in person because he's in New York. And we basically just hit on the head like, hey, like it was probably beginner's luck, but going back to that time, it like never really hit me like, oh, we just did $0 in revenue. I felt like an external pressure though of like I need to close something, like I need to like do something. But it all comes down to like that process. You can be results oriented as you want. Um, but as you know from running a startup, trying to grow a company, you have to be process oriented. Is your process right? Are you outreaching to as many people as you can? Are you making cold calls to as many people as you can? Are you learning sales on the side? And we were doing all that. So we were confident like there's something here for us. Like, how can we refine this process or make it better? Do we believe in this process? So emotionally for those 2 months, it never really hit me until we closed a deal in June then, where I was like, oh my gosh, this is our first closed deal in like 2 months. It was pretty crazy. I remember I was in a coffee shop in Chicago when we got word that they were going to close. And I was like, like, it was like such a good feeling because it's like, oh my God, like this is our first closed deal in 2 months. It's pretty crazy to think about actually.
I love that. So then, as you're getting closer to the end of last year and starting to think about quitting your job, like, how are you making that decision?
Great question. And so I would definitely advise anyone listening, if they want to start their own company, do not just jump 2 feet in and be like, oh, I'm going to figure out as I go. Definitely, you can do that. How I would advise people to do it is definitely work a full-time gig and make sure like you're getting product market fit. You can say you're actually generating some sort of revenue off to the side. So we got to around August timeframe, and in the back of my mind is like I want to leave my full-time gig so bad. Like I am so ready to do this full time. But I grew up in like a frugal family, so like finances and stuff are always like, oh, is that a smart business, like a smart money decision to actually do? Like, is that actually smart? So I remember sitting down in August and I was like, what needs to happen for me to actually leave my full-time gig? Like I actually
Mm.
sat down, opened my journal. It's like, what needs to happen? And I got to like 3 or 4 variables that needed to happen. That we need to hit revenue. We need to have a certain amount of customers. I need to buy a laptop because I'm going to lose my work laptop. I can't remember what the fourth one was. We'll stick with those 3. So those are the 3 targets I needed to hit. And I gave myself like a 3-month span to do this. Taped it to my wall so I could see it every day. And basically for those 3 months, like it was just like a grind. Like I knew I wanted to run Spacebar Visuals full time. And I laid out a process of, okay, this is how I will actually feel comfortable leaving my full-time job. So yeah, for those 3 months, did very, very well. And, was comfortable enough to leave my job. So I think it's just actually laying out that plan and writing a process to say, this is what it's going to take for me to leave my full-time job. So I would recommend anyone that is wanting to quit their full-time job to run their business full-time to actually lay out that plan of like what needs to happen. Because otherwise it's just be in your head like, oh, I want to do it, but what actually needs to happen to do it?
I love that. Helps focus you on the most important metrics to accomplish.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about your founder, I hear a lot of great stories of just amazing founders and
Yeah.
great relationships, and I've heard just as many horror stories where
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
just crack and fall apart in the long term. How did you make sure you had the right co-founder?
That is a great question. Someone asked me that recently on a podcast. Truth be told, like it was just like a good vibe. Like we were
Mm,
talking, like I knew he was super experienced. He's sold an agency in the past before. So he had, if someone's gonna be like my mentor or like a founder, like I have to, as everyone does, like you have to respect that person. Like you have to be like, oh, like you've actually done something really cool and I want to kind of like be like you. So he's about 5 years older than me. And I was like, okay, you're in a position of like, I know you've done well. Like if I was 5 years older, like I'd want to be in your shoes type of thing. So it was just a really good match from the start of like him being 5 years older than me and me respecting him respecting me. And Brandon and I have like a great relationship.
mm.
He's someone that I look up to. He's a great just business partner in general. He's so sharp with it. It's incredible. Like some of the ideas he has around business. So there's just like really good synergy from the start, but it was never like sitting down and like, what are your values in life? Maybe we should have done that, but a year and 3 months, 4 months in, it's been a very good partnership.
Are you guys 50-50 partners, or is there one person that kind of makes the final call?
Yeah. So Brandon actually is the majority stakeholder in the company. But he definitely gives me the power to like make decisions on the side. Cause he has Spacebar Visuals, but he also works on like 5 or 6 different companies.
Okay.
So Spacebar Visuals is like my baby more than his, but he is the majority stakeholder.
Okay. How do you guys divide up the work?
Yeah, so really he like lets me handle all of the work. He like we have a team of 10, so I'm not like the only one in this company like doing stuff. Yeah, we have like designers, voiceover artists, we have a BDR who's awesome, we have an ops guy who's awesome. So really like I am like the CEO of the company and like see the execution of all tasks. Brandon is more there to be like kind of like that mentor, like, oh my god, like I kind of have this problem, or like how would you approach this type of situation? So that's really how it's like divided, I'd say.
Okay. How about the capital raising? Did you guys have to bring any capital to make this happen?
Yeah, so that is why Brandon is the majority stakeholder. He put about 10 grand into the company to get it
Okay.
started, but that's about it. From the start, we took that 10 grand, plugged it into Instantly, LinkedIn bit list, and got a contractor to do some of our video work. So that was how that first 10K was spent.
Okay.
So yeah.
Hmm. Do you do you recommend to people to find a co-founder so you can kind of spread the load, or like, do you think that it's better for people to go out on their own so that they have more control over the system?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like Brandon is such a good co-founder, like for
Mm,
me, like with me. So I just because this is really my own company that like I've really like grew. It's been super helpful to have Brandon as a co-founder. I would not trade that for the world, just with like his expertise. So if you are going to go the co-founder route, I'd definitely recommend getting someone that has maybe a different skill set than you or has experience that you don't have. Because combining those is like a very powerful like formula. Brandon is, I know a lot of like sales and marketing. Brandon is like ops, like leadership, like just like really like just someone good to have on the team. So I would say get a co-founder if there's really good synergy, if you can match your experience levels and whatnot. So do that, but there is definitely something to be said about being your own founder.
So my next question is about the day-to-day experience. For me, I was having breakfast yesterday with someone who's not quite a billionaire, but very close to that level. And
That's cool.
he talked about like how hard it is along that journey. Now, there's so many points that they really screwed up. They struggled. In fact, at one point, he went totally bankrupt with this
Wow.
company, but has come back in a roaring fashion. So people from the outside, they look and they say, this is a nice smooth trajectory, but like
No.
the reality is it's not that way at all. So I'm really curious from your perspective, being, full time now for the last few months, what have been the ups and what have been the downs and
Yeah.
how have you wrestled through them?
Yeah. I mean, like the downs have been like when you don't get any revenue for 2 months, that's a
Mhm.
pretty big downer. Um, some of the, starting with like the downs, I mean, just the whole journey is always like very rewarding. I lead our account management, I lead like our financing, like our sales, our marketing. Like I have my hands in a lot of different areas, and so obviously some days are better with that. Sometimes people are like very frustrating to work with. So those are just kind of like the day to day like downsides of running your own company is you are going to be doing so much work and you are going to be spread so many different areas where it can feel like a little overwhelming if you're not in like the right mental state or if you're not prepared for that. Just the pros of that though is like I would not trade this for anything in the world. Being
Mm,
24 years old and being able to create my own schedule, work where I want, have a very large leadership position within a company is like the most rewarding thing for me. And like you said, like people get into starting their own company because they want to make a lot of money. Like, great, that's awesome. For me, like it is such a creative outlet for me to put together these awesome videos that like I wouldn't trade it for the world. And just to be able to lead an awesome team creating like awesome videos, like I just would not trade that for the world. So there definitely are downs in the day to day where it's can be frustrating. You're like you doubt yourself, like, oh my God, like I don't know if we're gonna hit revenue this month, or like I don't know if this person's gonna sign, like what am I doing wrong? To get over that though, you just really have to have a self-belief that you are on the right track. And it all goes back to that process. Is your process correct? Is it systemizable? Can you replicate this type of thing? And that's how you can really refine it and make those downs not as much as a down. But yeah, I would definitely not trade this for like the world. It is so fun to do.
what I'm hearing in that, which I love, is I've seen in order for business leaders to really be successful, they've got
Mm,
to love the business that they're creating.
yeah.
Because if you're just in it for the money or just in it for the flexibility, you'll find that the pain and the stress and the
Yeah.
struggle of it all will overwhelm you because you're just
Yeah.
focused on trying to relax on some beach. But if you're there for the right reason, if you believe in the cause of what you're trying to do, that's when you see
Yeah.
real long-term success. Ryan,
Yeah.
how do people find you if they want to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me on LinkedIn at Ryan Atkinson. You can send me an email at ryan@spacesbarvisuals.com. If you are listening to this episode today, you guys will get a 20% off any video package that can be over $2,000 value. So definitely keep us in mind for any of that. You can go to spacebarvisuals.com and just fill out a form and say you're listening to this episode, and we'll definitely hook you with 20% off. So those are the two areas you can find me, and there's a special deal for anyone that is listening. So yeah, definitely reach out if you have any questions or anything.
I love it. Ryan, the one thing that really stood out to me is sort of really a clear, tangible takeaway is if you're looking at moving into creating your own business, to set a set of metrics that you need
Yes.
to hit before you actually jump ship. It makes so much sense. But if you put that together, you can have a greater sense of confidence knowing that the time is right and now to jump into that business. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today. And thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike. You're the man. Thank you so much.